Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Monday. Happy start to the week, no matter where you are in the world. Monday is a reality no one can escape. So, might as well enjoy it as much as we can, right? Hope everyone had a great weekend. And yeah, let's get started with this. So, today's topic, it might not make much sense to those who are not living in North America, primarily, between Canada and US, because this is a very sort of niche topic in that sense. But again, those of you who have a, who have something called global entry, you guys might be able to relate to this as well. So again, it's slightly focused, um, but then those who don't know about what this whole trusted traveler program is, I mean, there's something in it for you guys to learn as well, and see if you guys qualify for any of this or whatnot. Because at the end of the day, I think there are definitely benefits to this program, but I'll also try and discuss, okay, why we are seeing a drop in applications and whatnot. So since I already gave this away, so I can't show everyone the full article today because I know this is behind a paywall, and if you don't subscribe to Vancouver Sun, you won't be able to see the whole article. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scroll down on a separate screen and then kind of point out some of the key points. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't show you the whole thing just because this is sitting behind a paywall. Although I have checked that the headline will show up, you can read the first couple of paragraphs. But yeah, I'm going to leave this on, and kind of just discuss the points over here, and then give my thoughts and opinions on what I feel the fuller story is. So basically, the key point this article is trying to point out is that NEXUS applications have fallen in Canada by 50%, right? To be specific, in this article, there's a chart. So if any of you guys can subscribe, then you'll be able to see that. But it's basically saying in 2024, throughout 2024, the number of Canadians who applied for NEXUS was about 500,000. And now you are at basically 2.5. Now you are at about 250,000, right? So it's saying there's been a 50% drop, slightly more than that if you go by the exact numbers. And while even in the US that number has dropped, it's not as significant as what we see in Canada, right? So the US numbers are basically, you could say 150K down to 100K, so about a 33% drop. Now, first thing, let me give you guys a quick sort of introduction to what this whole NEXUS thing is for those of you who are not living in US or Canada. So trusted traveler program. I won't go into the details, but largely speaking, this might be useful, at least for some of you who are looking to go to the US and you don't live in US or Canada. So let me go ahead and share this. Nice. Now I cannot see my show scenes window. Oh, I'm showing that. Uh-huh. I know. Lock a previous scene. Window, auto filters, camera effects. Overlays. There we go. Finally, I can change what I'm sharing on the screen with this one. I'm not sure why it keeps going away. If any of you use or have used Ecamm Live, let me know what the easiest way to make sure that it stays on the screen is. But okay, let's go here. right? So this is basically a bunch of programs that were, I guess, started by the US to allow faster entry into the US for people from certain countries. And then depending on which country you are from, there's a different program, right? So the TSA pre, for those of you who don't know, TSA is the Transport Safety Authority. Anyway, it's this agency which is responsible for transport safety. And essentially, if you go to a US airport, you go through the X-ray detector, body scan, and all the good stuff. All of that is managed by the TSA. And at any port of entry, you will have some sort of a TSA intervention, right? Like primarily at airports, right? So that's TSA pre. So once you have what's called TSA pre, you basically have faster security available to you. Now, to be fair, it's not guaranteed that you'll always get that facility. There are random checkings and whatnot. I don't know their algorithm. It doesn't guarantee it, but more often than not, if you're already TSA pre, you will just have a much easier time crossing security and whatnot, right? Now, global entry is for people who are coming into the US, but they are not Canadians or Mexicans, right? So this is global entry is for everyone, or for not everyone. I know this is legal stuff, so I don't want to misspeak, but for a list of certain countries, visitors of those countries to the US, once they have a valid visa or they have a valid passport or whatever to travel, they can apply for this. And for those of you who are wondering, Indians are allowed to enroll into global entry. I actually did it. I've done this for my relatives, so I know that this is possible for Indians. Now, NEXUS, the program that we're going to discuss in detail today, is for frequent travel between Canada and US. So the prime usage of this, at least in my life, is when I cross the land border between Canada and US. What happens is there's a dedicated lane where you can go, and if everyone in the car has a NEXUS, then you can use this lane, and you can, lines are shorter, there is not as much interrogation or anything. It's just a quick, where you headed off to, have a good day, that sort of a thing. It's a very seamless experience in that sense. Again, it does not mean that you will never get checked. You can have your lucky day, but more often than not, it's not a big problem, right? And the way NEXUS is different is NEXUS allows the same benefit when coming back into Canada, right? So that's why NEXUS is only for Canadians and Americans. So an American will not even be, essentially, as soon as they try to apply for a trusted traveler program, they'll be told, okay, just apply for NEXUS, because then you'll have the safe entry to Canada, like fast entry to Canada, fast entry to US, and faster travel between Canada and US. Sentry is the same thing, but between the US and Mexico, essentially. And then fast is something I don't understand too much, but it looks like it's for commercial truck drivers for all the three countries. So really what the Vancouver Sun article is saying, now I'm gonna switch back over. So we're back to preview, right? It's saying that the number of NEXUS applicants fell by 50% in Canada. And then the major reasons given for this is the price shock. And then, I can't remember what there's a campaign that's running in Canada. It's a political thing. The Canada strong mindset is what has led to this decrease, right? So I mostly agree with the sentiment of the article, but what I think is the real reason is because, see, when I look at the exchange rate, it's actually becoming more and more favorable for Canadians. It's hovering around the 1.37 mark. And I think when Prime Minister Carney took office, we were well above 1.4, or we were at least at 1.4, right? So it has become slightly more quote unquote beneficial for Canadians to go to the US. But we often hear in Canada these days that, oh, okay, Canadians don't want to go to the US as much anymore just because, politics, tariffs, all the good environment, all the good tense environments that we keep hearing about. So Canada strong, elbows up, all these expressions are a way for Canadians to say that, okay, we are one, an independent country, two, we will decide where to put our money. I think some of that is true, but there are two, three things that also need to be considered. One thing is cost of living in Canada and US both have gone up a lot. So even when the exchange rate used to be a lot more favorable, let's say when Prime Minister Trudeau took over, it was at 1.09. So it's almost saying that, okay, it's a 10% reduction, but then in the US you have lesser taxes, so it kind of makes up for it. So that time it was like, okay, it's almost equivalent, right? What has happened is, at least in those days, US used to be cheaper than Canada, right? So there was a benefit, or there was sort of more incentive to go to the US and travel within the country. Now, even travel within Canada was cheaper. But what has happened is all the current, the price of gold is through the roof, which basically means that the US dollar is losing value itself. Things in the US have just gotten more expensive as well. For instance, I did a whole live on comparing the cost of basically the same car. Okay, the generations have gone on, but I basically compared the price of a very economical car from 2014 to 2025. And even in the States, the price of that car has gone up by 20%. In Canada, it's ridiculous. It's gone up by more than 40%. So one thing is that it has become expensive for Canadians to travel. Two, US itself has become more expensive. So Canadians are just looking for other destinations to travel to, right? Yes, currency depreciation is a thing. Canada strong is a thing. Elbows up is a thing. But it's just more expensive even in the US. So I think the article does justice. It does point out quite a few different aspects on why the number of applications has gone down. But I think some of them are more relevant from an overall travel perspective, not necessarily just why NEXUS applications have gone down. The second thing is the sticker shock, right? So I have a NEXUS. So I know I've seen that sticker shock myself, right? So when I applied, I got it for $50, 50 USD, so about 65 CAD, give or take, for 5 years, right? Now recently, last year, I think the price was hiked up to $120, 120 USD. So by the time I have to renew mine, I'll be paying about 160 CAD, right? Now, personally, I think if the price stays at this much, I will go and bite the bullet, just because, man, it is convenient. I can't deny that. Like it is a very streamlined process at airports, at land crossings, and like 9 out of 10 times I'm literally going to like 2 or 3 locations within the US. Yeah, I may go meet up with my relative or friend and then go somewhere in the vicinity, but again, the address I'm going to give is like the same. So for me, if I'm literally going for the same purpose again and again, like, visiting friends, visiting relatives, vacation, family day, whatever, it's nice to have it, right? Now, there have been times where Nexus itself has played a role in, getting me to the security gate in time. Like once I had to get to LA airport, and LAX is a lovely, lovely experience. So yeah, got to the terminal literally through the security, everything in about 10 minutes and straight at the gate, well in time for the flight, right? And before I had entered the airport, I was, getting very anxious. I was like, I'm gonna probably, just losing my shit that, oh my God, there'll be a long line, there'll be blah, blah, blah. All of these things were just, playing on my head. And I was like, maybe I'll be marginally late, maybe I'll miss my flight, whatever. But that didn't happen, and Nexus saved me, right? So it has its benefits. But again, if it goes above a point, then I may have to reconsider that, okay, is it really worth it? Because at the end of the day, even though you get it for 5 years, the number of times you will use this facility in 5 years, especially if you're not an extremely frequent traveler, will be like 20 times, right? 20 times is basically you are considering going and coming back, because Nexus allows you easier entry into Canada as well. So, give or take, I'll use the facility 20 times and I'll have to do some math. Okay, 160 CAD. Okay, is $8 worth it to, have a faster security process? Or whatever the price of Nexus is at the point that I'm going to renew, right? But the last thing I want to point out, I'm going to keep this one short. I don't want to bombard you with rambling nonsense. But what we have to understand is Trusted Traveler program is actually, there are two aspects to this. One thing is that the US, the Canadian ones, depending, at least with Nexus, the Canadian agencies, the US agencies, they see a lot of traversing the border daily. And same thing with US and Mexico, so that's why there's that Sentry program, right? They know that there is a huge chunk of people who are literally safe, like there is no issues with their legal statuses. So for them, this is a program that can help them just clear security easily. These programs come with a lot of restrictions. You break any of them even once, and yeah, last I knew, you can't reapply for a lifetime, right? So you have to be careful. Like every time I have a doubt, I would go look up a forum or just try to find the legal document. I've even called up, CBSA, or I forgot what the US equivalent is, but I've called up all these agencies to make sure I'm not violating the rules of using Nexus, right? So the second, so giving someone a Nexus benefit or a Sentry benefit, or a global entry benefit for that matter, and essentially reduces the workload which these agencies face at the points of entry. So even when you do have a Trusted Traveler program, you are vetted in the background, right? You're vetted. But at the point of entry, since you're already vetted, it doesn't, you can just go fast through the line, or you have your own dedicated line, and it's just, you have a kiosk or whatever, and you can fly through, right? But the other aspect is, there's limited slots available for something like Nexus. So you go to an airport, there'll be maybe 1 or 2 kiosks or queues. It will lead to a bunch of kiosks for Nexus, and then you can go to the other side. Same thing at a land crossing, right? You have, let's say, 10 lanes where you can, present yourself to a border officer, and there will maybe be 1 or 2 Nexus lanes. So ultimately, this program is trying to sell exclusivity. The reason it's faster through this line is because very few people have it. If everyone gets it, essentially, let's say there are 100 people trying to cross a land border, and if 51 of them have Nexus, then the the program loses validity, right? Because to process 51 people, you will need more than 2 lanes. Maybe, let's say you have 10 crossings, you'll need about 4 or 5, at which point there is no point in even having Nexus because it's the same trade-off. Like, there is no trade-off left. One thing is, okay, I pay some money, okay, I can go faster. Of course, I'm saying the background check has to pan out, but you have to but you get faster access once all of it is approved and you're following the rules, right? So exclusivity is one aspect of this whole program. The way I see it is, we saw this with the I-94s. So if you again I-94 is what you have to get when you enter the US. It doesn't matter who it is, everyone gets an I-94, I think, except some countries that have some treaty, whatever. But basically, if you're entering US on a visa stamp, you have to pay for an I-94. Up until last year, it used to be $6, and then you would get entry for up to 6 months on a visitor visa. Recently, it got hiked up to, I think, 24 or 28 or something like that, right? So I think across the board, prices to enter the US on some sort of a legal status, they're just going up. It could be just to, I think they're being readjusted for all the inflation, all the, COVID roosters coming back home, essentially. So that's why there's been such a huge jump. The reason is, I mean, for the longest time, I remember since 2010, when I was entering and exiting the US and I would need I-94s, I was literally paying $6. So there's a backlog in adjusting all these fees for inflation. Be that as it may, even if that doesn't add up, US by itself is on a certain trajectory, and they are trying to, manage the number of people coming in for all purposes, not just work, not just asylum, not just visits. It's across the board. There's an adjustment on how many people should be entering the US, and they have a right to do that. It's their country. So the pricing mechanism is one way of doing it, right? Apart from all the other news that we hear about ICE and whatnot. So I think ultimately, for me, it's pretty clear that the pricing on trusted traveler programs is gonna go up. I don't think it's gonna come down. It may stay stagnant for a few years, but ultimately it's gonna go up again, because for a program like Trusted Traveler to even have an incentive for people to go ahead and get it, it is actually exclusivity. That's what enables the faster transit. Otherwise, the product itself, if more than 50% of the traveling population has a TTP, then overall the value of the program drops. It's the same reason why Apple will always price their products very high, right? They're very clear. We give you a really great experience. You don't have to worry about anything, but hey, you gotta pay for it. If you can't, then there are other options. Over the years, Apple has also come out with, quote unquote budget options, but I mean, even those budget options are not necessarily, they're definitely not the cheapest on the market, right? So that's all I had for this. So let me know, guys, what do you think of my analysis, and what do you think of my opinions on this? So, like it or not, the pricing for Nexus has more than doubled. It will probably go up in the next few years, maybe not more than double like this. I think there was a whole inflationary backlog to sort of catch up to. But also the fact that fewer Canadians are applying for it, I think there is just a number of reasons for it, right? One of them is the sticker shock. The other one is all the politics going on, Canada strong, elbows up, blah, blah, blah. And then the third thing is Canadians are simply traveling to the US lesser. One, because of the one, because of the currency exchange, but two, US itself has just gotten more expensive. So Canadians are just looking for other holiday destinations where the Canadian dollar can just buy more, essentially. All right, guys, I will wrap this up. Hope you have a great evening or the rest of your Tuesday if you're watching from India or elsewhere. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great rest of the night. Ciao, ciao.